Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are doing colored pencil ribbons. So this is going to be an exercise on establishing values within your colored pencils and within your drawings. So to start off, you're just going to establish with a regular pencil, you want to do a swirl, and this is going to be very similar to what you see on a snail. And then straight lines down on each end. And you can use a ruler for this if you want, but you by no means are required to. And you can have different sizes, maybe do a small one. And your swirl can go in different directions. It's up to you. Add a few more in here. And I'm not a huge fan of how that one turned out, so let's fix it a little bit and then get started. Now remember, when you're using colored pencil, it's always best to start with relatively light pressure. I am starting with a darker colored pencil, but I'm not pressing super hard, except for on those spots where I know my lines aren't going to move. And I'm just plotting in some of my darker values so those lines don't get lost in the shuffle as I'm working. And all my lines are very close together as I work, so it almost becomes just a solid color. As you're doing this, you can use a variety of different colored pencils. I'm going to be using quite a few different greens, and since I have chosen to do this, it's going to help me establish the different tones and different values a little bit more easily. But if you only have the one color, that's fine. You can still achieve values with it, but you'll be doing that by using pressure and the different shading techniques such as hatching or cross hatching. I'm using a white to show where my highlights will be, and I do block those in before I go in with a lighter green, but you don't have to. I've just found that to be the most successful way to do it. Everybody draws differently, everybody will color differently. You gotta find out what works for you. When you're trying to get some of your darker areas in, drawing in different directions is going to help that as well. That's called hatching, where you draw one way and then draw over it in the opposite direction. And that helps establish some of your darker points. And like I mentioned, using a white and using various pressures helps with that as well. Throughout the video, I will be using what I'm currently using, which is a colored pencil blender. Now this is one of my favorite tools when I'm working with colored pencils because I think it gives the drawing a really finished look. But if you don't have them, that's fine. I'll sometimes use whites when it's not available to me, although the white does give the drawing a little bit more of a highlight, so it'll be a little lighter in those areas, so you'll sometimes have to go back in with a dark color. As you're working, you're going to really want to pay attention to your dark areas and make sure they're not too much of a strong transition from your darks to your lights. And if that's the case, you can always go in with a medium color, kind of a mid-tone, or just use lighter pressure and try to soften that up just a little bit. We are about getting to that point where you can say it's finished. Just as a reminder, make sure, since it is a drawing that goes off the page, that you're not leaving a white area at the very bottom. Some people have a tendency to do that. You want to make sure you're coloring all the way down. Moving on to our second one, I'm going to use orange for this one. Now I'm only going to be using 3 different oranges. And it's very similar to the last one. The only difference is going to be the color, and that it's just a slightly larger ribbon. So starting in, blocking in my darker areas, and then going in to block in my highlights, or where my highlights will be. Try to follow the direction of your object as well. That's also going to help make it look more realistic as you work. So curving around and straight along the sides. But that about brings us to a close on our second ribbon. Hopefully you got something out of the video. Thanks for watching.